Hey sixth graders, so I'm sorry that I'm not there today, but I didn't want to leave you hanging in terms of introducing long division to you guys. So you should have this note sheet in front of you. I'm going to give you a second to go ahead and get that out with your pencil. If at any point during this video you need to pause it so that you can fill in information, or if I'm going too fast for any reason, feel free to pause it and go through it at your own pace. But I am going to go ahead and go through these guided notes with you guys. So today we're going to be dividing multi-digit numbers, and we're going to be doing that the standard long division way. I know for a lot of you, you've been using partial quotient or different methods to help you divide, but I am going to really push you to give long division a chance. It's one of those things that the more you do it, the clearer it becomes, and you start realizing it's not as bad as it seems. So if it's seeming kind of difficult to you at the beginning, I want to remind you to consider a time when partial quotient seemed a little confusing, right? And now a lot of you, it's your go-to. So just be mindful and open to the idea that you may actually think that long division is better, okay? In terms of some key vocabulary, the first thing we have is that the dividend is the number being divided into. That is what we are breaking up, okay? So like I have 380 Jolly Ranchers, right? I have 28 pencils or whatever it is that I'm trying to split up or break into groups. The divisor is the number which divides the dividend. So, I have 32 pencils and I'm trying to divide that by 8, break it into groups of 8. Lastly, the quotient is the answer to a division problem. So we know each operation has a vocabulary word tied to its answer. For example, the answer to an addition problem is the sum, answer to a subtraction problem is the difference, and the answer to a division problem is called the quotient. So I'm going to take a second to label all of these things. Up top, we have our quotient, which is the answer. One way that people remember it is by saying queen quotient. It goes on the top. Our dividend, or what it is that we're breaking up, goes inside of the house, and a lot of people remember it by saying the dividend is in the den, which is inside of the house. And then we have our divisor on the outside, and that's what it is that's doing the dividing. Alright, so we do have some steps for you today. And DMSCB is not something that just rolls off the tongue, so we definitely do have something to help remember it, and that is, does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers raw? So when we're going through the steps, the D stands for division or divide, M stands for multiply, S is for subtract, C is for check, and B is for bring down. Now I am going to add another letter to this R, and that R is going to stand for repeat, because we're going to repeat this process as many times as we have to get our answer. And so one way that you can remember it is, does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers raw? And you either love McDonald's and think that they don't, or you do not think McDonald's is that good and you like, well, maybe they do sell people cheeseburgers raw. But there's a way to help you remember. Alright, so now we're actually going to type this, okay? Our question is, how many groups of 18 can we get out of 1008? And honestly, that is a large problem. So what we like about long division is that it helps us break it down digit by digit to truly make this problem something that's easier to deal with, okay? Now 1008 is our dividend, 18 is our divisor. That's what's doing the dividing. One thing that I like to do prior to starting a long division problem is just list out some multiples of my divisor and refer to that list whenever I need to as I'm going through it, okay? So I'm going to come down here on the bottom, and I'm actually going to list out some multiples of 18, and I'm going to count. So 18 one time is 18. 18 two times is 36. Alright, 36. And label that with a 2. 18 three times is 54. And label that with a 3. 18 four times is 72. And and then 18 5 times is 90. I think I'm going to stop at 90. Okay, so now that we have this list, it's easier for us to refer back to as we go throughout the problem. I'm also going to write my steps. Does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers raw? And I'm going to check myself off as I go through these steps just to ensure that I'm hitting them all. Okay? Alright, now, when we're starting, we don't know how many 18s we can get out of 1008. 1008 is a very large number, so we're going to break 1008 down digit by digit. Okay? So the first thing we're going to ask ourselves, instead of looking at it as 1008, we're going to ask ourselves, can 18 go into just 1? And no, we can't get any full groups of 18 out of 1. So we're actually going to include just one more digit. We're going to say, can 18 go into 10? And no, we can't get any full groups of 18 out of 10. So we're going to include one more digit, and we're now doing 18 into 100. So the question is, how many groups of 18 can you get out of 100? I did make a list down here, and I know that 5 of them is 90. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 5 up top. So we divided. How many full groups of 18 can you get out of 100? You can get 5 of them. I want to make sure I put it up above the 0 and 100 because I went into 100, not 1 or 10. So I'm going to make sure it goes up above the 0 and 100. That's dividing. Now we're going to multiply. We're going to ask ourselves, what is 18 5 times? And that is 90. I'm going to put that right underneath the 100. Okay? So I did 18 into 100 5 times, which was 90, and I'm going to subtract that 90 from the 100. What's left over is 10. Okay? Now I'm going to take a second to check. Whatever I have left over should be less than 18. If I get something that is 18 or greater, it means I didn't choose the greatest number up here when I was trying to figure out how many times it could work. So I got 10, which is less than 18, and I can move on. So we checked it. Alright, now the B stands for bring down. There is a number we haven't accounted for yet. We did 18 into 100, and we kind of ignored this 8. So we're going to go ahead and bring that 8 down. And now we're going to ask ourselves, how many 18s can you get out of 108? Well, I went up to 90 on my list, and I know that if I add another 18, that's going to put me right at 108. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 6 up here. Okay, and I'm sorry, we bring down, and now we're going to repeat. Okay, so how many 18s can go into 108? Because my new number is now 108. We said 18 can go into 108 6 times. Now we're going to multiply. 18 times 6 is exactly 108. And when we subtract, we have nothing left. And nothing left to bring down. So the answer is 56. Now you can always check yourself by doing 18 times 56 and seeing if that gives you 1008. You do have that option. Okay. Alright, so let's look at this one. How many 22s can you get out of 1,914? So imagine you have 1,914 Jolly Ranchers and you're trying to split them between 22 people, right? How many Jolly Ranchers are those people going to get? Before we start, 1,914 is our dividend and 22 is our divisor, right? How many 22s can we get? So I'm going to go ahead and list my multiples of 22 just because it'll be helpful to me going throughout the process. So I have 22. 2 times would be 44, 3 times would be 66, 4 times would be 88, 5 times would be 110, 6 times would be 132. I think I'm going to stop at 6. Okay, so I have this down here that we can refer to. And I'm going to put, does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers raw? Alright, let's start. So our first question is, we don't know how many 22s we can get out of 1,914. We're going to take it digit by digit. Can 22 go into 1? It cannot, so we're going to include one more number. Can 22 go into 19? It's close, but it cannot. So we're going to include one more number. Can 22 go into 191? And honestly, I'm realizing that I did not go up high enough in my multiples for this. So I'm going to keep going. 7 times would be 154. 8 times would be 176, and 9 times would be 198. Okay, so now how many 22s can you get out of 191? I know it's 8. So I'm going to put an 8 up here above the 1 and 191. And I'm going to multiply. What is 22 8 times? It's easy to refer back to my list down here and say 176. Alright, now we're going to subtract 191 minus 176. And we get 15. We're going to take a second to make sure that what's left over is less than 22, and it is. So we subtracted and we checked it. And now we're going to bring a number down. So since we went into 191, we haven't accounted for this 4 yet. We're going to go ahead and bring it down. And now we have 154. So our new problem is how many 22s can we get out of 154, which is a lot easier to work with. So we're going to repeat this process all over again with 154. So I'm looking down here at my list and I see that it can actually go in 7 full times exactly. So I'm going to place a 7 up here. Then I'm going to multiply. What is 22 times 7? That is 154. And I'm going to subtract. And when I subtract, I get 0. There's nothing left over and I have nothing left to bring down. So it can go in 87 full times. Alright, so once again, you can rewatch this video as many times as you need to go throughout the notes. And then when you get a chance, go ahead and flip it over onto the back and see how well you do. Okay? One recommendation that I do have is turning your paper sideways and rewriting your problem so that you actually have room for long division. That way you have the entire length of the box. Okay? If you want to see one more problem, I'll do this one. If not, you can go ahead and stop this and move on your own. Okay? But for this problem, how many 7s can go into 623 is a large problem. But I am going to go ahead and list some multiples of 7 down here. So 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, and 56. Alright, it's good to number them so you don't have to count it each time. Alright, let's start the problem. So, first thing we're going to do, divide. We don't know how many 7s we can get out of 623, so we're going to take it digit by digit. Can we get any full groups of 7 out of 6? We cannot, so we're going to include one more number. Can we get any full groups of 7 out of 62? So I'm going to come down here, and I see, oh, I'm at 56. I know 9 would have been 63, which is too much. So I'm going to go with 8, which is 56. I'm going to put that 8 above the 2 and 62. Okay, we divided. Now we're going to multiply. What is 7 times 8? We know that is 56. I'm going to place it right underneath my 62 and go ahead and subtract. What is 62 minus 56? That's going to be 6. I'm going to check to make sure that what I have left over is less than 7. It is. And now I'm going to bring down my next number that I have not used. So we have not used this 3. I'm going to go ahead and bring it down. And we're going to repeat this process. Now it's 63. So our question is, how many full groups of 7 can we get out of 63? If we check our list, we see that it can go in 9 times. We divide it. Now we're going to multiply. What is 7 times 9? It is 63. And when you subtract, you get 0. We have no other numbers to bring down, so we are done. The answer to this problem is 89. So remember, you can watch this video as many times as you need. Try to work your way throughout the problems, and then I'll see where you guys have made it or how comfortable you feel when I get back. I hope you have a good rest of your day.